The Indiana Hoosiers are historically a basketball school, with 5 banners hanging in their rafters. What they are not known for is football. In fact, they are one of the worst Power 4 programs, only recording 3 winning seasons since 1995. Tom Allen, Indiana's former coach, led the Hoosiers to a dismal 9-27 record over the last 3 seasons. He did give them something to root for during the COVID year, with the team being ranked as high as 8th in the country, with current Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer as the offensive coordinator and Falcons draft pick Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback. Other than that blip, the outlook in Bloomington has been bleak. But this year, all of that has been flipped on its head.
Man, how about the Indiana Hoosiers?
Okay, just how legit is Indiana? So they went 3-9 last year, and they're off to a historic start under first-year head coach Curt Cignetti.
Indiana is off to a scorching hot 6-0 record to start the 2024 season. And it's all thanks to this man, Curt Cignetti.
How do you, is there a...
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
The Hoosiers fired Tom Allen and hired Curt Cignetti from James Madison, where he boasted a 52-9 record and transitioned the Dukes to the FBS level. Cignetti immediately overhauled the Indiana team when he came in, bringing in 13 players from James Madison alone. Players like wide receivers Elijah Surratt and Miles Price, defensive back D'Angelo Pons, linebacker Aiden Fisher, running backs Justice Ellison and Tyson Lawton, and defensive lineman Mikel Kamara have completely revitalized both the offense and defense. But I believe the most important piece has been Curtis Rourke. The Ohio transfer threw for 3,200 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions 2 years ago in the MAC, and has settled in nicely at Indiana, throwing for 1,700 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, currently finding himself with the 12th best odds to win the Heisman. Critics would argue that the Hoosiers have had somewhat of a cupcake schedule, playing FIU, Western Illinois, and Charlotte out of conference, and playing UCLA, Maryland, and Northwestern in conference. And yes, this schedule is easier than most, but I think people are being hard on a downtrodden program that hasn't won a bowl game since 1991. Most Hoosier fans would be thrilled if you told them that they were going bowling this year, let alone being in the hunt for the college football playoff midway through the season. It should also be noted that Indiana is blowing every team they've played out of the water. They haven't trailed any team this season while averaging 47.5 points per game and winning by an average margin of 32.67 points. The closest game they played was at Maryland, where Indiana walked away with a 14-point victory after Maryland scored in garbage time. There's a good reason that ESPN's Football Power Index is giving the Hoosiers a 43.6% chance to make the college football playoff. But now let's look forward to the rest of Indiana's schedule. They are currently coming off a bye week, and let's hope they're well rested because it's only going to get more difficult from here. Indiana plays at home this weekend against Dylan Raiola's Nebraska team, which will be the biggest test of the season so far. The Cornhuskers are 5-1 and borderline ranked, coming off of wins against Purdue and Rutgers. A win here would silence a lot of doubters and establish Indiana as a serious contender in the Big Ten. After that, they have Washington at home and Michigan State away. Washington's a dangerous but inconsistent team, with a key win over Michigan 27-17. But 3 losses already, coming off of a stomping from Iowa 40-16. It's a similar story with Michigan State, who have had an extremely tough schedule and are coming off of 3 losses in a row against Boston College, Ohio State, and Oregon. These 2 games are Indiana's to lose, but both teams are good enough to spoil the Hoosiers' Cinderella season. That then brings Indiana to the most important 2-game stretch of the season: Michigan at home and Ohio State away. Michigan is the easier of the 2, with Indiana currently being ranked above them, but while they may not have Jim Harbaugh or J.J. McCarthy anymore, they still won a college football playoff last year and have studs like Will Johnson on the defense. This should be a great game, and depending on how Indiana does in the 3 games leading up to it, their playoff odds could hinge on a win, because Ohio State should be a loss for the Hoosiers. Indiana should be favored in every game leading up to their matchup with the Buckeyes, barring a collapse, but they'll be heavy underdogs in Columbus. The Hoosiers can afford a loss in this game and still sneak into the playoffs with an 11-1 record, assuming they're undefeated before the game and beat Purdue after. Unfortunately, a loss here would more than likely mean Indiana is locked out of the Big Ten championship. As with the expansion to 18 teams, you need to be near perfect to get in. but they were never supposed to be in that conversation in the first place. It is an extremely exciting time to be a Hoosier fan. The atmosphere almost reminds me of when Indiana and Michael Penix Jr. knocked off Penn State in overtime in their 2020 opener. Only time will tell if this underdog story continues, but anyone who actually watches Indiana football knows that this team is the real deal, with some serious weapons who can knock off teams Indiana fans never dreamed they could compete with. We'll see how they fare against Nebraska, but another win or two, and all eyes are going to be on Indiana to see if they can pull off the miracle of making their first college football playoff. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.